So here you can see the design for our new Beauty for Ashes school. Here, as you see the cursor going, is the front entrance where you'd walk into a full cafeteria with tables. Um, our children currently have to sit on the side of the building or on the ground or maybe on a wooden bench at best to eat. But with this new school, we would provide for them an actual cafeteria where they could have food. Here you see back here a full kitchen that can be used to prepare their food inside, and even storage back here, a refrigerator, a freezer, and then even a dry pantry storage here. We have just some utility closet here, but then this room here would be the front office that would provide security for people coming in and out of the building so that our children could attend school safely without the fear of someone coming and taking one of them that's not supposed to, or um, if there's anyone that looks suspicious coming around the grounds, then this security window view here would actually give security a view of anyone coming in and out of the building. And then back here behind the kitchen, you see we have a nurse's room here where if one of the students falls ill while they're there at school, then they can actually come back here and get some treatment. We'll have an actual nurse and doctor medical team that will be overseeing this to make sure that they're getting quality care, not just care. And so we'll have access to actual medications for them and such. And then back here, next to that, we have some washrooms. We'll have a girls' and a boys' washroom that will be separate with indoor toilets and running water. I know that for those of you who are Americans that might be watching this, that sounds like, of course, running water, and of course, but here in Uganda, that's not something that you find at a lot of schools. So that would actually be something to help out with the sanitation and hygiene and keep these kids healthy and safe. Here you see we have a full music room that the kids would be able to use their gifts that God has given them and be able to learn musical instruments and music theory and such. Behind that, back here, we have a library where the students can go and do research and learn from books, encyclopedias, dictionaries, things some of them have never ever seen before. And then we have back here a computer lab for our students to be able to access the internet and do some online learning, learn some media and tech things that they would never be able to have a chance to do otherwise. So if we come back out here in the hallway and go past the washrooms here, you'll see stairs that will lead up to the next floor. But while we're still down here on the first floor, these two doors here on the opposite side of the cafeteria would actually access the auditorium. I'm going to zoom out so you can see. The plan would be for us to get a collapsible stage and bleachers so that those would be able to be taken inside or outside depending on the need or the function. But this would be a full auditorium so the children could participate in things like theater. We could have full school meetings, parent meetings, just things that are very important for the running of a school, and having a area where they can actually meet indoors during rain season. That is huge and key. During rain season here in Uganda, sometimes it literally rains from morning until night. So that is just huge. And then back here we just have a big storage thing behind the stage here that could provide for storing equipment for the auditorium itself. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out. And we'll go up here to our second floor. So we don't have the furniture set all the way completely in their classrooms, but as you can see here on the second floor, there are plenty of large classrooms where our children could actually be social distanced even during this COVID time, could even be having more students in those particular classrooms. And so that whole second floor is classrooms, and then there's again a washroom for both the girls and the boys. So they would both have access to that. Again, you see the stairs here. That would then lead us up to our third floor. And here on the third floor of the school, you're going to see our executive offices and then some additional classrooms. The idea behind the additional classrooms is room for us to have even more students, but also the plan would be to build the school first, and then we would be able to use these extra rooms as part of the rehabilitation center while that particular structure is being built. Again, here on this floor, there are additional washrooms on both sides, so for access to the classrooms, also for access for visitors that are coming to meet in the executive offices. The teachers will have their own offices here, which they will very much enjoy. Sometimes it's very nice to be able to go into your own office and grade papers and such. And so we're going to provide our teachers with just with a place where they can go in between classes to just relax, just enjoy themselves and have some time to themselves. And so that would complete the design of the school building itself. I'm going to zoom out so we can see this first floor. I actually did this design, so it's in an L shape, just to kind of put my signature on it, I guess. So on our first floor, we have the emergency room and trauma center. On this floor, then we have some also rooms for outpatient doctor visits over here. So you would go into the lobby setup is a little bit similar to the school that we had seen. So you walk in, there's a reception desk here, a place for people to wait and sit, and then a little cafe here where people can get food from the kitchen here to enjoy while they're, here visiting their relatives or whoever is at the hospital. Here again, you see a office for the security. They actually have a view on the outside of all wall, the whole wall. They can see all the way this way and all the way the front of the building to ensure hospital safety here at Healing Hands Hospital. Back here behind the kitchen, you see the elevator. There are 2 elevator points, with some of the elevators only going to certain floors. The reason for that is because we'll get to it a little bit later, but there is actually a dementia unit in this hospital, which is something I have not seen since I've been here in Uganda, so that's a big deal. And so as we go back here behind the cafe, you see the washrooms that are here for the lobby. So when you first walk into the lobby, there's the little cafe and the place to sit, and then we can even put some additional, seating here along the wall and stuff. So this won't be the only seating. This is just an example for you. But there's plenty of room for seating here in the lobby for people that are waiting. And we also have back here a library for the doctors to do research, for medical students to do research, nurses to do research. It would even be available to patients and their families that are coming in wanting to just read about some conditions. And then we also have a computer lab here where research can be done online, where there will be a couple of computers where families can access online if they need to do that. And then here to the left, you see our ultrasound room. This would be divided by a wall, but then there would actually be 2 separate stations for ultrasound scans to be done. And then we would go over here to our other wing. So you see there's a wall here separating kind of all of these things are part of the general lobby. The ultrasound scans are more of a common test that's done. And so we have that as a part of the lobby here. And then as you would come back this way, come into these double doors here, then we get into the doctors, the outpatient ordering. And so from that outpatient ordering area, those outpatient exam rooms, there would actually be able to be 5 outpatient doctors operating at this, working at the same time, seeing patients. Again, we'll put some additional seating along these walls so that they would have places to sit. But you see that the wait time is drastically reduced. We have some seating like that right here. The wait time will be drastically reduced for patients because we will have staffing for 5 doctors to be able to be seeing patients at the same time. So behind the exam rooms here, we actually have our, here's an MRI room where there is not an MRI available anywhere around Jinja. You have to go far past to Kampala to even access an MRI, and that can be a 4 to 5 hour drive depending on traffic. So there's an MRI machine that would be right here in the Jinja area. We also have an X-ray machine and also a CT scan machine here. So these are all going to be available to patients right here in the Jinja area. So even other hospitals wouldn't have to send patients all the way to Kampala in order to access an MRI or some of these other tests. They would actually be available right here in Jinja. And then you see back here we have our second access point for an elevator. So we had one over here, back here at the bottom and right hand of the screen if you're seeing. And then there's another elevator that is more of going to some of the other floors up here, along with a set of stairs. And when we get to the second floor, I'll show you the other option for getting up to the other floors, which is a ramp on the outside of the hospital. Here in Uganda, something that can be a struggle at times is power outages. And so just to ensure that people are always able to get up to the other floors, even if they're on a cart or something, there will be a ramp outside of the hospital in order to access the other floors of the hospital. But so you would go up in the elevator in order to get to those things. Back here, if we go through this room that's next to the stairs, and there is actually two separate entrances to this area here, and that's because this is the emergency and trauma area. Back here you'll see that we have several private emergency rooms. Private meaning that each patient, there's a bed in each room, and those would be separated by wall partitions, not just by curtains, to prevent the spread of infectious diseases and ensure patient privacy. And so we have all of these rooms here. These would be the trauma area emergency rooms for people that have experienced serious traumas from accidents and such. And they have access right here to 2 separate trauma operating rooms right here on the first floor. And then back here, we have additional rooms for emergency room patients, a waiting area and washrooms back here. And this entire wing back here in the back is a pediatric emergency room. As you can see in this video that we have of one of the local children's hospitals, the need for individual rooms for these children that are being seen in the emergency room, the need for multiple rooms to be there, the need for multiple doctors and nurses and space for them is so prevalent here. And you can see that even in this short clip that we're showing you of these other facilities that are available, that having these individual rooms to prevent communicable diseases from spreading, to give patients and their families privacy with these children, and to just, these desks will be equipped with monitoring apparatuses that will be able to monitor heart rates and things of that nature remotely so that even though a doctor can't be in every single room at the same time, any patient that's hooked up to any kind of heart monitors or anything of that such, there will be monitors here at the desks that as soon as something goes off on one of those machines, the nurses will know what room they need to go to immediately and be able to access that. So, again, we'll have the same thing over here in the other emergency room in the trauma areas. If someone's a very, very serious situation going on, there will be monitors for them to be able to check heart rates and stuff for these adult patients as well. So that's our first floor. And then we go up here to the second floor, which is our maternity and ICU floor. So on this floor, there will be the same amount of rooms that you saw down there on the first floor will be available on this second floor. So ICU patients, there's these rooms and then also these rooms back here, same size. And then also pediatric ICU here along this wall here. So as you can see, the ICU is set up a little bit different with the doors because the fronts of these rooms are glass so that the nurses can see into the rooms at all times. That's very important when you're in an ICU to be able to see the patients if their conditions are changing at all. So over here, so there's a separate lobby kind of for this other side. And so the elevator comes up into this little landway kind of, and as do the stairs. And so then you can either go back here to the ICU and check in with these nurses, or you can come here to the maternity ward. We do have one ward room here in the maternity unit that just has beds for those who may not have as much funding, or if they're just here for something simple, their babies are healthy, they're healthy, they can be here in the wardroom and then they can go home. Then that's what this is for. But we have also private rooms here for patients that have given birth and are going to be staying in the hospital for a few days, have had to have an operation, have had to have a C-section. And there's additional rooms back here should this area be completely full. Then these rooms can also be used on this side for additional maternity rooms. The nice thing about this maternity floor is that there are actually operating rooms on the maternity floor that can be specifically used for only the C-sections and delivering the babies. This is just so key because obviously when someone's, when we're talking about someone dealing with having a baby, having access to a room where a C-section can be done is very important. And so we have actually rooms up here to have those C-sections done right there on the maternity floor and then get the patients right into their rooms. Here on the outside, you're seeing that ramp I was talking about. It actually would go up the side of the hospital all the way up to the 9th floor, and that would give option if an emergency happens and the power is out, access can still be granted to all of those floors. So you see the elevator back here, and then the elevator over here, and they both access this floor at different points. So then we'll move on up here to our 3rd floor. This is our general inpatient floor, and also where our executive suites are located. So this would be where the director of nursing, the medical director, things of that nature would have their offices, and we'd also have a boardroom to meet with any medical professionals that are coming in, anything like that. The walls haven't been put in the design yet, but these would be additional inpatient rooms that are accessed by this other side, on the other side of the executive suites. And then here is our general inpatient ward where you see all these rooms back here would be available, and also all of these rooms here. This is a very big inpatient ward, and the main difference you're going to see between our inpatient ward and that of a lot of the other hospitals is that we have a lot of private rooms and just a very few amount of ward beds. And the reason for that, again, is the prevention of disease spread. When you look at a situation like what we're dealing with right now in the whole country with COVID and the pandemic, having a private room for a patient is key to stopping the spread of diseases. And one of the things that we've seen happen throughout this is there not being enough space for such things. And so even having extra rooms, even if they're empty at times, but having that extra space on all of our floors in order to allow for overflow of patients that may come in. Here in Uganda, that is a huge thing, is the patient to availability of rooms ratio is very deficit, and the patient to doctor is very deficit. So over here, the elevator does come up here, but on the model, for some reason, it doesn't like to show up on the thing. So the elevator will be right here next to the stairs like it was before. But over here, you see the lab. So we actually have a lab right here, and there's also another ultrasound machine and a couple other things in this other room. But there's a whole lab with a whole counter for them to process blood work in a timely manner, and then there's some waiting for the lab over here. Now this section over here is something that I did discuss a little bit. So we have our executive suites where, just offices for the director and stuff, but we also have some self-contained rooms for the doctors to be able to rest if they're working night shifts, if they're working, swing shifts, if they're, having anything like that where they have to be at the hospital for long periods, giving them a place where they can rest. We'll provide refrigerators and even microwaves in these rooms where the doctors can reheat meals if they need to. Even if they're having to eat at 2 a.m., give them an opportunity to be able to just relax and have kind of a little home away from home type of feel. So that's what those are there. And then I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here, and we're going to go. So here on the 4th floor is something that is very close and dear to my own heart, that I have yet to see anything of its kind here in Uganda. I do have a lot of experience with this type of unit myself because my father, Douglas Parsons, actually had a disease called frontotemporal dementia with ALS. And he spent 5.5 to 6 years in a dementia unit. The reason that these units are so important is because when patients are stricken with dementia, safety becomes an issue for them. When I said earlier that the elevators would only access certain floors, some of the elevators only open from one side because of this unit itself. So we don't want a patient to be able to get onto the elevator and just leave the dementia unit. And so the elevator actually only opens to the side where they can't get to it. But here you see in the dementia unit, just beds in rooms that have adequate room in the washrooms for the aides and the nurses to be able to help take care of the patients. In general, 2 rooms share one restroom because most of these patients aren't going to just be going in and out by themselves. And they have several rooms put in a specific pattern to group them so that they can be monitored by nurses according to different stages of dementia different needs as far as physical activity, different needs as far as are they going to be going in and out of their rooms a lot. Some of these patients are bedridden, while some of them might be going up and down the hall in wheelchairs or even wandering and walking. And so this gives them kind of a little bit of a maze that they can walk around a little bit, but also within a safe environment. Back here, we have a waiting room for families. Um, Something that's really key. Sometimes this can be really stressful on families, and this just gives them a little place to go where they can get away for a minute and just kind of regroup their thoughts. We also have a boardroom of such here, where plan of care meetings with families, doctors, and all of the healthcare team can be had on each of our patients. And so there's a place here for all of us to meet and discuss the plan of care for each patient. You see there's also some washrooms for family that's visiting. There's a men's and a women's. And then back here, we have a small dining room for patients that are able to come to the table. Then we'll bring them here to the dining room. Back here, we have a therapy room for physical and tactile therapy. There will be some music therapy done in this room, all different kinds of activities that are proven to increase the quality of life for patients with dementia. And then we have another waiting room type deal back here where families can come and meet with their individual patients, even have a meal, have a little bit of family time back here in the corner and some privacy. Another thing that this boardroom can be used for is families can actually reserve this if they want to have a holiday or a birthday celebration or something like that. It gives adequate seating for the whole family, and they can have it right here in the dementia unit, not having to remove their patient. So definitely a key thing there. We have some offices for the doctors back here that are going to be overseeing this department, so that if they need to see one of the patients, they have privacy to come in here to their office and see the patient in here. And then again, the nurses' desks are strategically placed to be sure that all of our patients are getting the best care that they possibly can. So that would be the Doug Parsons Dementia and Alzheimer's Unit, is what this floor would be named in memory of my father. Here on the 5th floor, we have an entire floor that is for cardiac issues, anything from heart attacks to doing heart caths to any of those things. We have, again, a small ward room here, but then have all of the rooms available behind here and behind here to also have rooms for patients to be admitted. Here we have 2 operating rooms for the cardiac floor itself, so that the cardiologist can actually do heart caths, do heart surgeries, do open heart surgeries right here on the cardiac floor, and not expose these patients to these germs and stuff that would be happening if they had to go back and forth all the time for these things. So back here, there is a pediatric cardiac unit as well. So just gives opportunity for children who are experiencing cardiac issues. And actually in the new design, this ramp will be actually moved out here. And those same rooms that you saw lining behind on the other floors, we're actually going to be adding those to the design. So there will still be yet more rooms available for the cardiac floor here. So that's pretty cool. Back here is just the, again, operating rooms specifically for the cardiac floor. And then here we have some washrooms. So that's our cardiac floor dedicated just completely to cardiac. Here on the 6th floor, we have something that I also haven't seen much of here in Uganda, and that is an entire wing over here for hospice. So this is a place where patients and their families can be comfortable while the patient is in their last days here. This gives the families an opportunity to come and stay with their family members. And the majority of the time, when a patient gets to this place, they're not getting up and taking showers and such. The bathrooms in these facilities are actually designed for the families to be able to stay, to bathe, to be there with their family member when they're in their last days. And then over here, we have a full kitchen with a full dining table, a large dining table, even an island here that would be open 24 hours for the family members that are coming to visit their family member that's in hospice. That we would provide things like soup, something that would be able to be eaten at any time, but then also people can bring in foods for them to have at all times. I actually got the idea for this because of the experience we had at this great hospice place that my father was at the end of his life. And it was just so comforting to us to know that we didn't have to leave him there, that if I needed to take a shower, there was a room for me to take a shower. If I wanted to sleep there with my dad, there was a bed for me to do that. If I needed to eat or needed to even get away for a second, I could come into this room but still know that if anything at all happened, I was right there and able to get to my father. And such a comforting thing. And so this would be the first unit of this kind that I've seen anywhere here, and very close and dear to my heart. Back here, you see we have there is a very small pediatric hospice unit. Sadly enough, there are times when even children have to be brought into hospice. And so we have provided rooms here in the hospice unit for those difficult situations, that even it being a difficult situation, these families can find some comfort knowing that their infant is getting the best care that they can. So as we go away from the hospice unit here, you'll see that we actually have an additional lab here. And the reason for that is this entire unit on this side, and it will have the additional rooms behind, like we discussed on the other floors, is a unit for travel medicine and infectious disease. This is completely separated from the other unit, so this you would only be able to get in here with authorization from the desk here, and the reason for that is this is an area for contagious people to be able to be self-contained in a room of their own and have a lab of their own that the doctors can access and use in order to be sure that they're getting the best care possible without spreading the disease further into other areas. As you can see, this area has plenty of chairs for the medical staff, and the reason for that is that a lot of research goes into these cases. A lot of things have to happen in order to find out what's really going on in some of these medical situations, and so we've literally given them their own lab for the infectious disease and also plenty of rooms in order to make sure that people have enough room to stay. So that's a kind of aerial view of the one side of that floor. On the 6th floor is for the hospice unit itself, and then this other side is for the infectious disease and travel medicine. We're at Healing Hands Hospital, and this 7th floor is for the general pediatrics. So as you know, we had the pediatric ICU and the pediatric hospice and cardiac, but this is for general pediatrics, for inpatient. They also have their own pediatric operating rooms here up in the pediatric department, which is huge. You know, instead of having to bring in and out, kid-sized stuff into a regular operating room, we're actually able to have kid-sized stuff right here in their own operating room. And so you see the rooms here are equipped with a child's bed, a crib, and then also a bed for the parents to be able to stay there with the children. So this whole floor is dedicated to that, and as we saw in the design of the previous floors, with the add-on that we've done to the design, there will be additional rooms behind here on both of these sides that will be accommodating even more patients if need be. So we have a waiting room here, again with a little table where families can have a meal together if they want to. These rooms, again, are self-contained, meaning that they have washrooms right there in each room. And if you'll notice here in the pediatric ward, we do not have a ward room because, again, we're trying to give them the best care possible, and that means not the congestion that you see in some of the hospitals here locally. We want them to be able to have privacy, the families to have some peace of mind and some quiet, and so these rooms are all self-contained and separate from the other rooms. There is a separate ultrasound room up here in the pediatric floor, and then here behind the washrooms we have a playroom where kids that aren't contagious and stuff can come in and have times of play even when they're here in the hospital, as well as kids that are coming to visit their siblings. So we have a play area there. The pediatric ward actually has its own kitchen back here. I'm going to zoom around. You can see the ramp coming up here again. It's literally going to just go like this, like zigzag, zigzag, all the way up to the 9th floor. We're on the 7th floor right now. So there is a separate kitchen here, a waiting room here that families can just hang out in while they're here visiting. And there's a separate kitchen with its own little cafe for the parents, and the food for the kids will actually come out of this as well. This was purposeful in putting a kitchen up here on the pediatric floor. When you look at these parents, some of which have multiple children, trying to cart all of your children up and down from the 7th floor to the bottom floor to get this, and then worrying about the child that's in the hospital the whole time you're gone, we didn't want that to be a situation here. And so we've actually provided them with their own kitchen, their own little cafe, and they can get food right here on the floor, right on the inpatient ward. So also have a doctor's room here where the doctor can see patients privately outside of their rooms if that is a need, or even if someone's doing if somebody's like a direct admit, then they'd be able to see them and admit them from this office up here. So there you see our inpatient ward. And again, there will be additional rooms back here at the back here behind this and back here behind this. So next we go up to the 8th floor, which is our orthopedic floor. This would give people the opportunity to have orthopedic surgery in these state-of-the-art operating rooms. There's 3 of these operating rooms right here on the orthopedic floor, and then patients would be able to go into rooms that are made to accommodate wheelchairs and orthopedic problems. They would have orthopedic-friendly bathtubs in order for the patients to be able to bathe, larger doors, wider rooms, and beds that are more acceptable and easier for orthopedic patients. So all of this would be located on one floor. Again, orthopedic patients have the operation here on their floor and then just be taken to their room. We do have a small ward room here for the orthopedic patients that maybe only need to stay overnight or something, and it might be just a simple procedure. That way they could be housed here in the hospital and then just be quickly discharged. On this side, we have a separate area for the pediatric orthopedics. So they would also be able to have their operations here on the orthopedic floor and then just be moved to an orthopedic infant room. And then again, as I've been saying throughout the design, as we saw on the first 3 floors, there will be additional rooms behind here where patients would also be able to be housed for orthopedic purposes. That's why you see doors out here. That's going to be expanded and the ramp's going to be moved out. So again, that was our orthopedic rooms. And finally, here at Healing Hands Hospital, here is the design for the 9th floor of Healing Hands Hospital. And Healing Hands Medical Center is something that's close to my heart because of the name behind it, but also because of some of the things that we're putting in this hospital that aren't available in this area. So the 9th floor is our oncology floor. It would be the Linda Ann Bentz Parsons Oncology Unit. This is a unit dedicated to my mother, Linda Ann Bentz Parsons. She actually had marginal zone lymphoma with hemolytic anemia, and we lost her back in 2017. So this would have a separate lab for the oncology patients. As anyone who's had any experience with oncology knows that labs are a big part of that treatment, and so in order to avoid lab backlogs and long wait times for blood work and even just congestion in the lab because of other conditions exposing these patients with weakened immune systems to all these other germs, so they'd have a lab right here on their own unit. And so here you see we have some pediatric oncology rooms along with rooms for adults here on the oncology floor. These are all self-contained, again, giving them privacy and a peace of mind that they won't be exposed to those other germs and things. And we have back here some larger rooms for situations that might be more hospice related, but also relating to oncology. So families would be able to stay back here with their family members, and if it's just pain management at that point or whatever the issue may be, they would have that opportunity to stay with their family member. We will again have additional rooms on these back sides for the case of overflow, or if we would run out of room in the main unit here. The first floor plan for our guest house. This guest house would be located right there on the property with the other facilities that we will be building, right there on the 4 acres. Here on the first floor, you see a long dining table with a full kitchen and 2 good-sized dorm rooms and then a sitting area. Now, these 2 dorm rooms would actually be to temporarily house street children that we work with, so that we can get them into schooling and assess their situations, but in the meantime get them off of the street and into a safe and dry place where they can actually have access to meals. There will be actually 2 more floors for the guest house. The next floor up will be rooms for missions teams to stay in, and then we will have an additional room that'll have some dorm rooms and some single rooms for missions teams. So actually 4 floors total, sorry. And then on the very top floor, there will be an executive suite on one side in order to house medical teams that might be coming over from the U.S. Physicians and things of that nature would have a place to stay right here on our facility. And then on the other side, there will be a couple of apartments for women who are in domestic violence situations to be able to stay until we can get them into proper housing of their own. So that's what the guest house would consist of. And this is very necessary for what we're doing here at Beauty for Ashes, in order to ensure that we're helping these street children and these women that are in these abusive situations. So that completes the tour of the currently designed property buildings that we would have on the property. And the design for the rehabilitation center is currently being worked on. So there would also be a complete rehabilitation center on the facility's property that would allow us to have rooms for training, for job skills, and for mentorship right there on our grounds for Beauty for Ashes All Nations. So that completes the tour of our current projects, and we thank you for your prayers and support. This is a big vision that God has given us, and without your prayers and support, we would not be able to do this.